Imagine waking up every day carrying someone else's expectations, their doubts, their drama, and thinking it's yours. Imagine living your life constantly proving something to someone who doesn't even matter in your story. Now imagine waking up and realizing that the only person whose opinion matters is the one staring back at you in the mirror. That's where the power begins. When you stop scattering your energy, when you stop living for applause and start living for yourself. See, the world will try to steal your focus. It will tempt you with distractions, pull you into comparison, and drown you in noise. It wants you chasing validation instead of mastery, showing off instead of building, reacting instead of leading. But the truth is, the moment you turn inward, the moment you protect your energy, the moment you start investing in your growth and holding yourself accountable, you unlock a level of freedom most people never reach. This isn't about arrogance, and it's not about being selfish. It's about understanding that your energy, your discipline, your clarity, that's currency, that's power. And when you focus on yourself, when you build quietly, when you move deliberately, you're unstoppable. Energy is sacred. That's something most people don't realize until they've wasted too much of it. Every day you wake up, you have a limited supply of mental strength, emotional space, and physical drive. That's your fuel. And just like money in a bank account, once it's gone for the day, it's gone. A problem is too many of us spend it carelessly, giving it away to people who drain us, situations that don't build us, and distractions that have no return. When you learn how to protect that energy, you take control of your life in a way that most people never do. Think about the times when you were moving with momentum. Maybe you were locked in on a project, or working out consistently, or staying disciplined with your goals. Your energy was clear, focused, protected. Now think about the times when you felt stuck, drained, or like you couldn't catch a break. More often than not, it wasn't because you weren't capable, it was because your energy was scattered. Too many conversations with people who didn't pour back into you. Too much time scrolling through things that don't add value. Too much space given to negativity that takes instead of builds. Once you understand energy is sacred, you stop treating it like it's endless. Not everybody deserves your time, your mind, or your space. That might sound harsh, but it's real. Some people are just distractions in disguise. They want to pull you into their drama, their gossip, their chaos, because they're not in control of their own lives. The second you give in, you've handed over your focus. Your focus is everything. You can have the greatest ideas, the biggest ambition, but if your energy is being bled out by people who aren't on the same frequency, you'll never see it materialize. Protecting your energy means drawing lines, setting boundaries, and knowing that saying no is not disrespect, it's self-respect. There's also a hidden cost to giving your energy away, resentment. When you constantly give to people who don't give back, eventually you feel drained and bitter. You start questioning yourself, wondering why you're exhausted, why you don't have the strength to do your own thing. That's because you let your sacred energy be spent on the wrong exchanges. It's like handing out money all day and then being surprised when you can't afford what you need. Protecting your energy means being intentional about where it goes. You don't give it to just anybody because you know it's tied to your growth, your peace, and your purpose. Energy is not just about physical strength, it's mental clarity too. Your thoughts are energy. Your focus is energy. When your mind is cluttered with other people's problems, when you're worried about opinions that don't matter, when you're replaying negativity over and over, you're wasting energy that could have gone into creating something powerful. Protecting your energy means mastering your attention. You stop giving out free rent in your head to things that don't deserve to live there. You redirect that focus inward into your goals, into your healing, into your craft. That's when your life starts to shift. Another thing about sacred energy is magnetic. People feel it when you're moving with it. When you're disciplined, focused, at peace with yourself, your energy becomes stronger. You start attracting opportunities, people, and experiences that align with that vibration. On the flip side, when you're drained and scattered, you attract more chaos. Protecting your energy isn't just about keeping things out. It's about cultivating what's within. When you guard your mind, guard your time, guard your space, you allow yourself to operate at a higher level. And when you're at a higher level, the world responds. This protection doesn't mean isolation. It doesn't mean you cut everybody off or move like you're above people. It means you become selective. You know who's pouring into you and who's pulling from you. You recognize when a situation feeds your growth and when it feeds your destruction. Protecting your energy means you value yourself enough to not hand over your power carelessly. It's about balance. You can give, but not to the point where you've got nothing left for yourself. You can help, but not at the cost of your own foundation. Sometimes protecting your energy means walking away quietly. Not every battle deserves your response. Not every insult deserves your attention. Silence itself is energy conservation. When you don't react to negativity, you don't let it control you. You save that energy for what actually matters. In a world full of noise, your ability to guard your peace becomes your biggest advantage. That's why the ones who really succeed, who really create something lasting, are the ones who learn how to say less, react less, and focus more. Look at how most people live. They wake up, check their phones, scroll through other people's lives, argue online, complain, gossip, get caught in petty cycles. By the time they try to do something productive, their energy is gone, and then they wonder why their goals feel out of reach. It's because their energy is being spent on things that don't give them a return. Protecting your energy means flipping that script. When you wake up and invest your first thoughts into gratitude, into planning your day, into movement, you give your best energy to yourself before you give any to the world. You build yourself up before you go out and deal with everything else. Energy is sacred because it's tied to time. You can't get back the hours you spend. Once it's gone, it's gone. And most people don't see the connection until it's too late. Protecting your energy means respecting your time. It means not letting every phone call, every text, every distraction take you off your path. It means knowing that your time is your life and your energy is how you live that life. When you waste it, you're not just wasting a moment, you're wasting a piece of yourself. That's why the people who master their energy seem untouchable. They move different. They calm in chaos, focus when others are distracted, steady when others are inconsistent, because they know the truth. Energy is sacred. They protect it like it's gold. They don't let just anyone handle it. They spend it where it multiplies. They honor it, and in return, their life elevates. Comparison is one of the quietest killers of potential. It creeps in so smoothly that you don't even realize it's robbing you. You're moving, you're making progress, you're building something for yourself, but the second you look left to right and see what somebody else is doing, your whole perspective changes. Suddenly, your progress doesn't feel like progress anymore. Suddenly, the pride you had in your steps turns into doubt, because you're holding your ruler up against somebody else's story. That's the trap. You're measuring a marathon with someone else's stopwatch, and it doesn't make sense. Everybody's life is designed with different timing. Some people might hit success early, some might bloom later, and some might look like they're ahead when in reality they're only playing a short game. The problem with comparison is that it makes you forget your own lane. You stop watering your own seeds because you're too busy staring at someone else's garden. You start judging your day one against somebody's year 10. You forget that behind every highlight you see, there were struggles, sacrifices, and nights nobody talks about. You can't compare what you see on the surface with what you know about yourself because the picture is incomplete. Social media made this even worse. Everywhere you scroll with somebody posting wins, somebody flashing progress, somebody celebrating another milestone. And there's nothing wrong with people sharing their victories, but the danger is when you let that seep into your spirit as proof that you're behind. You see their new car, their new home, their new deal, and suddenly you feel small. You forget the fact that your story has its own rhythm. You forget that sometimes what shines bright online is only half the truth. People show their best moments, but they don't show the failures, the debt, the stress, the cracks behind the scenes. When you compare your real life to somebody else's curated life, you're setting yourself up for pain. Comparison steals joy because it convinces you that what you have isn't enough. You could be living a life that once felt like a dream, but the second you measure it against someone else's, you feel empty. That's the trap. It keeps you chasing validation instead of purpose. It keeps you reaching for what looks good to others instead of what feels right to you. You start asking, why don't I have that yet? Instead of asking, am I growing? Am I better than I was last year? Am I staying true to my vision? Running your own marathon means understanding pace. Some people sprint, but they burn out quick. Some people jog steady and end up lasting longer. Some people trip, fall, and still get back up and finish strong. Your pace is your pace. It's connected to your background, your resources, your mindset, your journey. You can't copy and paste somebody else's timeline onto your life. You don't know what they had to trade to get there. You don't know if they're even happy with what they've built. Comparison is a trap because it blinds you to context. You're comparing the outside of their story with the inside of yours. And those two things can never line up. When you locked into your own lane, you start seeing progress differently. Instead of looking at who's ahead of you, you look at who you were yesterday. You measure growth by consistency, by how many steps you've taken, by the habits you're stacking. That's the only competition that matters. Becoming better than your past self. That's how you build momentum brick by brick without losing focus. You stop needing to race against others because you understand the real opponent is your old habits, your old mindset, your old limits. That shift alone can change everything. The trap of comparison also creates envy. When you're looking too hard at someone else, it's easy to feel bitterness. You start thinking they don't deserve it, or you start downplaying their success because deep down you feel left out. But envy is poison. It eats away at your drive. Instead of letting someone else's win remind you that it's possible, you let it make you resentful. Protecting yourself from comparison means turning envy into inspiration. When you see someone doing well, use it as proof that success can be achieved, not as proof that you're behind. It's not them versus you, it's them showing you what's possible on your own road. Another danger of comparison is that it makes you chase things you don't even want. You might see somebody building a certain lifestyle, and instead of asking if that's aligned with who you are, you chase it just because you feel like you should. That's how people end up successful on paper but empty in reality. They ran someone else's race and got to the finish line only to realize it wasn't even their destination. Running your own marathon means being brutally honest with yourself about what you want, not what looks good to the world. When you know your finish line, you won't get distracted by the speed of somebody else. And let's be real, some people are only ahead because they cut corners. They cheated the process, they sold out their values, or they took shortcuts that come with heavy consequences later. If you compare yourself to them, you might feel like you're moving too slow, but in reality, you're building something that lasts. Solid foundations take time. Quick wins fade fast. You don't want to trade long-term peace for short-term applause. That's why comparison is so dangerous. It makes you forget that patience is power. When you stop comparing, you start appreciating. You see your journey for what it is, unique, messy, but yours. You start finding joy in small progress and lessons learned and discipline built. You stop rushing to the end and start valuing the process. You see that the grind itself is shaping you into who you need to be. And once you're locked in on that, comparison loses its grip. You no longer care about who's watching, who's ahead, who's clapping. You only care about moving forward in your own rhythm. That's the real freedom. Knowing your worth isn't tied to anyone else's timeline. Your story is sacred. Your growth is personal. Your timing is divine. The more you honor that, the less you get trapped by what everyone else is doing. Because at the end of the day, the only race you're really in is the one against your own limits. And that's a marathon nobody else can run for you. Discipline is the real currency of success. Everybody talks about dreams, goals, visions, but none of it manifests without discipline backing it. Dreams on their own are free. Anybody can sit around and imagine a better life, talk about what they want, or post about what they're chasing. That doesn't cost anything, but turning those dreams into reality requires consistent payment, and the only thing that pays that price is discipline. It's like the grind's currency. Every rep in the gym, every early morning, every hour spent learning, every temptation resisted, every choice to keep going when you don't feel like it, that's discipline. And the more of it you invest, the more your dream account grows. Discipline is different from motivation. Motivation is temporary, it's emotional. You hear a speech, you see a quote, you get fired up for a moment, but when that feeling fades, you're back at square one. Discipline doesn't care about feelings. Discipline is the muscle that makes you move even when you don't want to. It's what gets you up when the bed feels too comfortable. It's what keeps you working when nobody's clapping. Motivation might spark the idea, but discipline builds the structure. Without it, you'll keep starting but never finish it. Think about any area of life: health, business, relationships, self-growth. Discipline is the thread that ties it all together. You can't build strength in the gym if you only go when you feel like it. You can't stack wealth if you only save or invest when it's convenient. You can't master a craft if you only practice when inspiration strikes. Success comes to those who show up, regardless of mood, regardless of obstacles, regardless of circumstances. Discipline is what separates the talkers from the doers. A lot of people have talent, but talent without discipline is wasted potential. Discipline is also a form of self-respect. When you make a promise to yourself and keep it, you're proving to your own mind that you're trustworthy. Every time you say you'll do something and then actually follow through, your confidence grows. On the other hand, every time you break that promise to yourself, you weaken your own belief. Discipline builds inner trust. And that inner trust fuels resilience. When life throws setbacks, discipline is what keeps you from crumbling. You already trained yourself to keep moving, so you know how to get back up. The thing about discipline is that it's not glamorous. It's not the part people want to post about. It's the early mornings when nobody's watching. It's the quiet nights when you choose to study instead of the party. It's saying no to distractions that everyone else is indulging in. Discipline is lonely sometimes, but that's the price. Everybody wants the reward, but not everybody wants to pay the cost. That's why success feels rare, not because it's impossible, but because most people aren't willing to be consistent long enough to see it through. Discipline also compounds. At first, it feels hard. You're fighting old habits, rewiring your brain, building structure where there was none. But the more you repeat it, the stronger it gets. What was once difficult becomes normal, and what was once normal becomes easy. That's the beauty of discipline. It transforms into momentum. Soon you're not forcing yourself anymore. It's just who you are. That's when you know you've shifted, when discipline has become a part of your identity instead of a task. Another way to look at discipline is as a filter. It forces you to separate what's urgent from what's important, what's distraction from what's direction. Without discipline, you get pulled into every temptation, every opportunity, every random wave that passes by. With discipline, you stay anchored. You move with intention. You don't say yes to everything, because you understand every yes is a no to something else. Discipline gives you the clarity to focus on what truly matters instead of scattering your energy everywhere. There's also freedom in discipline. Most people think discipline is restrictive, like it cages you, but it's the opposite. When you're disciplined, you control your habits instead of your habits controlling you. You control your money instead of your money controlling you. You control your time instead of time slipping through your fingers. That structure creates freedom, because once the foundation is solid, you can build however you want. The ones who live without discipline feel free in the moment, but pay for it later with stress, regret, and wasted potential. The ones with discipline pay now, but they live free later. Every dream has a cost. You can't bypass that. If you want health, the cost is consistent eating and training. If you want wealth, the cost is consistent work, saving, and learning. If you want mastery, the cost is consistent practice and study. Discipline is that payment system. You can't fake it, you can't cheat it, and you can't outsource it. Nobody else can be disciplined for you. You have to pay it yourself, day in and day out. That's why discipline is the currency, because it's the only thing that translates dreams into reality. Even when it feels slow, discipline is working. There are times when you'll show up and see no immediate results. You'll grind, and it'll feel like nothing is changing. But discipline's like planting seeds. You water them every day, and even if you don't see growth above the surface, roots are forming underneath. One day, the breakthrough comes, and everybody calls it overnight success. What they don't see is the years of disciplined watering that made that moment possible. That's why discipline requires faith. You keep paying into it even before you see the return. Discipline also creates separation. While others are sleeping in, you're already moving. While others are wasting time, you're investing it. While others are breaking promises to themselves, you're stacking self-trust. Over time, that gap becomes massive. That's how you get ahead. Not by one big move, but by small, consistent acts of discipline that compound into something unstoppable. The world notices results, but the results only exist because discipline built them in silence. The hardest part about discipline is starting, and the second hardest part is continuing when nobody recognizes it yet. But if you can get past that stage, if you can stay disciplined long enough for momentum to build, everything changes. Opportunities start to show up, doors open, people respect your consistency, and most importantly, you respect yourself. That's the true wealth discipline gives you. The unshakable knowledge that you can depend on yourself. Investing in your growth is one of the most powerful moves you can make in life, because everything you put into yourself multiplies. It doesn't always show right away, but every book you read, every rep you put in, every hour you practice, all of it stacks. It compounds like interest in a bank account. At first it looks small, maybe even invisible, but over time it builds into mastery, confidence, and freedom. Most people spend their lives investing in things outside of themselves: clothes, cars, entertainment, temporary pleasures. Those things fade, they depreciate, they lose value the moment you get them. But when you invest in yourself, it never goes to waste. Knowledge, discipline, skills, health, all of that carries with you for life. Nobody can take it away. Nobody can steal it, and it pays dividends forever. But growth doesn't come by accident. It's intentional. You have to decide that you're worth putting time, money, and energy into. A lot of people drop hundreds on a night out, but won't spend a fraction of that on a course, a mentor, or a book that could shift their mindset. They'll spend hours watching others live their lives online, but won't spend 1 hour learning something that could change their own. That's the difference between surviving and building. Survival spins, growth invests. The ones who grow understand that every sacrifice today becomes strength tomorrow. Investing in your growth isn't just about money, it's about habits, the discipline to show up every day and practice even when nobody is watching. That's an investment. Every rep in the gym is an investment into your health, your confidence, your longevity. Every hour spent studying your craft is an investment into mastery. Every meditation, journal entry, or moment of reflection is an investment into clarity and peace. These things don't make headlines. They don't give you instant gratification, but over time they separate you, because while others are comfortable in the moment, you're building a future that most can't even imagine. Think about compound growth. You start with small deposits and they don't seem like much. You read 10 pages of a book, you do a workout, you practice a skill for half an hour. By itself, it feels like nothing, but stack that daily for a year and you've read several books, built real strength, gained hours of expertise. The compounding effect kicks in, and suddenly the gap between you and the one who never invested is massive. That's the quiet magic of growth. It sneaks up, it rewards patience, it pays the ones who are consistent, not the ones who chase shortcuts. The beauty of investing in yourself is that it pays in every area of life. When you invest in knowledge, you see opportunities others overlook. When you invest in health, you gain energy others lack. When you invest in discipline, you build resilience others can't match. When you invest in mindset, you find peace where others find chaos. The returns are endless. And it doesn't matter where you start, what resources you have, or how far behind you feel. Growth is accessible to anyone willing to put in the work. You might not control where you begin, but you always control how much you invest in yourself moving forward. One of the biggest lies is that growth happens naturally with age. Time alone doesn't equal progress. Plenty of people get older but stay the same because they never invest. They repeat the same habits, think the same thoughts, live the same cycles year after year. Growth requires effort. You have to break comfort. You have to choose learning over distraction, discipline over laziness, patience over shortcuts. That choice doesn't happen once, it happens daily. The more you choose growth, the more your life compounds into something greater. Sometimes investing in your growth means being uncomfortable. It means stepping into rooms where you're not the smartest. It means humbling yourself to learn from others. It means failing publicly, trying again, and refusing to quit. Growth is uncomfortable because it stretches you beyond what you know, but that's the point. Comfort never built mastery. If you stay where it's safe, you stay where it's small. Growth requires risk, sacrifice, and humility, but the reward is expansion. You evolve into someone your past self couldn't even recognize. The ones who invest in their growth also inspire others. When people see you consistently working on yourself, they start to notice the difference. You move different, think different, react different. You carry wisdom, discipline, and strength that others respect. Without even trying, you become an example of what's possible. Your investment in yourself spills into your community, your family, your team. The stronger you become, the more you can give. That's why investing in yourself isn't selfish, it's essential. You can't pour into others from an empty cup. Growth fills your cup so you can overflow into others. Another piece of growth is patience. In a world that glorifies instant gratification, real growth feels slow. You don't always see the results right away, and that's where most people quit. They plant seeds and expect fruit tomorrow, but growth doesn't work that way. You invest, you water, you nurture, and you trust the process. The ones who stay consistent through that invisible stage are the ones who eventually break through. By the time people notice, it looks like you leveled up overnight. But the truth is, it was years of investment finally compounding into something undeniable. Investing in growth also means removing what doesn't serve you. It's not just about adding more knowledge or more habits. It's about cutting the distractions that block progress. If you spend hours on things that drain you, no amount of learning will save you. Growth requires pruning. Just like a tree, you cut the dead branches so the rest can flourish. That might mean limiting negative people, letting go of toxic habits, or breaking cycles you've carried for years. That's an investment too, choosing subtraction that leads to multiplication. At the core, investing in your growth is about believing in yourself enough to pour into your future. It's about understanding that you are your greatest asset. Every skill you learn, every habit you build, every piece of knowledge you gain, it all stacks into something that nobody can ever take. That's real wealth. That's the foundation for freedom. That's what allows you to move through life with confidence, knowing that no matter what happens externally, you've built something solid internally. Silence is one of the most underrated powers you can hold. In a world where everyone feels the need to announce every move, every plan, every next step, choosing to keep quiet becomes a strength. People think silence means weakness, like you're not doing enough, but in reality, silence means focus. It means you're too busy building to talk about building. It means you're letting results be the proof instead of words. When you broadcast less, you conserve your energy, you protect your vision, and you move without interference. Silence doesn't mean inactivity. Silence means strategy. Every time you announce your moves too early, you invite unnecessary eyes onto your process. Some of those eyes will doubt you, some will secretly root against you, and some will try to copy you. Not everyone watching is clapping. Some people wait for your failure so they can feel better about their own lack of progress. Some people will take your ideas before you can even launch them. When you learn to stay silent, you take away that power. You stop giving people access to your blueprint. You let them see the finished building, not the foundation being laid. Silence also keeps you grounded. When you talk too much about what you're going to do, you start feeding on validation before you've even done it. That early praise tricks your brain into thinking the job is already complete, so your hunger drops. You feel like you've achieved something just because people clapped for your intention. But intentions don't pay bills, and applause doesn't build empires. Execution does. Silence forces you to stay hungry, to stay disciplined, to keep your energy aimed at the work instead of at the performance. Think about how the most dangerous moves in life are usually made quietly. A chess master doesn't announce their strategy, they just execute. Nature doesn't make noise when seeds are growing underground. You don't hear the roots forming, you don't see the progress, but one day the plant breaks through the soil and it's undeniable. That's how your growth should be. Invisible at first, protected from opinions, safe from distractions, until it's strong enough to stand on its own. By the time people notice, it's too late for them to stop it. Silence also teaches patience. When you're not rushing to show people what you're doing, you give yourself space to make mistakes, to adjust, to learn. You don't feel the pressure of everyone's eyes, so you can move at your own pace. You're free to fail in private, to correct in private, to experiment without judgment. That's how mastery is built. The loud ones are so focused on proving themselves that they never give themselves time to grow properly. They rush to show off something half done. The silent ones take their time, and when they finally present, it's solid, undeniable, and unshakable. The noise of the world is constant. Everybody shouting, posting, updating, proving. Silence cuts through that. It makes people curious. When you're not broadcasting, people start to wonder. They notice your absence. They sense your energy shifting. They feel something happening even though you're not saying a word. Silence creates anticipation. And when you finally step out with results, it hits harder because nobody saw it coming. That element of surprise, that shock factor, only exists when you've been disciplined enough to move in silence. But silence isn't just about keeping things secret from others. It's about protecting your own mental space. Every time you share too much, you open the door to opinions. People start telling you how to do it, when to do it, or why it won't work. Even if you're strong-minded, that negativity plants seeds of doubt. Silence closes that door, keeps your vision pure, untouched by noise. You don't let outside voices cloud your judgment. You don't need approval or validation, you just need execution. Silence becomes a shield for your focus. Silence also brings power in conversations. The one who talks the most often reveals the most. The one who listens and observes learns the most. When you stay quiet, you notice details others miss. You read body language, you catch patterns. You pick up on truths hidden between words. Silence sharpens awareness, it gives you control. People underestimate the silent ones because they think silence is weakness. But in reality, silence is calculated. When you finally speak, every word carries weight because people know you don't waste breath. In your personal growth, silence gives you freedom to evolve without pressure. Sometimes the worst thing you can do is announce your self-improvement journey too early. You tell people you're quitting bad habits, you're starting new routines, you're building something, and then suddenly every slip is judged, every mistake is magnified. That pressure crushes people. When you move in silence, you evolve without the burden of eyes on you. You can stumble and still rise without judgment, and by the time you've truly changed, people don't hear about it, they see it. And it's also a spiritual side to silence. Noise keeps you distracted from yourself. When you're always talking, posting, proving, you rarely sit still long enough to hear your own thoughts. Silence creates space for reflection, clarity, and alignment. It's in silence that you figure out who you are and what you want without the distortion of outside influence. It's in silence that creativity sparks because your mind isn't crowded by the world's chatter. That's why silence is powerful, not just for strategy, but for self-discovery. And silence doesn't mean secrecy forever. It doesn't mean you hide your wins out of fear. It just means you understand timing. You know when to keep quiet and when to speak. You know that results speak louder than promises. You understand that the light shines brighter when it comes after darkness. So you build in the shadows until your work can't be denied. And when it finally steps into the light, it doesn't need explanation. It speaks for itself. Accountability is one of the most misunderstood forms of power. Most people hear the word and think it's about restriction, blame, or responsibility forced on them from the outside. They think it's someone holding them down or policing their actions. The truth is the exact opposite. Accountability is the ultimate form of freedom because it puts control where it belongs, in your own hands. Once you take full ownership of your choices, nobody can derail your progress, nobody can manipulate your path, and nobody can determine your success except you. It's like stepping out of a cage that you didn't realize you were living in. Once you embrace accountability, you realize that your life is yours, and that revelation alone is liberating. Most people avoid accountability because it's uncomfortable. It's easier to blame someone else, to point fingers, to say, I couldn't do it because of this person, that circumstance, or that system. And yes, life throws real challenges at us, but when you spend all your energy assigning blame, you hand over your power. You allow your results to be determined by factors outside yourself. That's the trap. Accountability flips the script, says, I am responsible for what I do, how I respond, and what I build. It doesn't matter how much anyone else interferes, how many obstacles arise, or how unfair the circumstances seem. Ownership means you operate from a place of control rather than reaction. Accountability starts with self-honesty. You have to look in the mirror and see the truth of your life. That can be brutal. You have to admit where you've fallen short, where you've procrastinated, where you've made poor decisions, and where you've wasted energy. That's uncomfortable because nobody wants to face their own mistakes, but facing them is liberating. It's like shedding weight you didn't realize you were carrying. Once you acknowledge your role in your situation, you can start to take steps to change it. Without that honesty, change is impossible because you're still pretending someone else controls your story. Accountability is also about results. It's easy to feel productive when you're busy, but busyness isn't enough. You have to measure your actions by what they produce. If you're not seeing progress, you have to own it. Maybe you didn't plan well, maybe you didn't execute, maybe you let distractions take over. Excuses won't help, and external factors won't fix it. Accountability requires you to identify the gap between what you said you'd do and what you actually did, and then take corrective action. That gap is where freedom emerges. Once you own it, you can fix it. And once you fix it, you reclaim control. There's also a paradox in accountability. The more you accept it, the less pressure you feel from others. When you stop expecting people to check on you, guide you, or push you, you realize you're capable of moving yourself. That's true independence. You don't need external approval or supervision to be consistent, disciplined, and productive. Nobody can tell you how to behave because you've already set the standard for yourself. You become self-governing. That's freedom most people never experience because they're constantly reacting to other people's expectations instead of setting their own. Accountability transforms how you approach challenges. Instead of complaining, procrastinating, or making excuses, you ask, what can I do right now to handle this? It changes your mindset from passive to active. Every obstacle becomes an opportunity to exercise control, to demonstrate that you're capable of navigating life on your own terms. It's not about perfection, it's about consistent ownership. Even when you fail, accountability allows you to recover faster because you're not looking for someone else to rescue you. You know the responsibility is yours, so the solution is yours too. One of the most powerful aspects of accountability is the way it shapes relationships. When you hold yourself accountable, people respect it. They notice that you don't make excuses, that you don't shift blame, and that you follow through on your commitments. You become reliable, trustworthy, and steady. Qualities that attract opportunities and connections. On the other hand, people who refuse accountability invite chaos into their lives because others cannot depend on them. Freedom isn't just about your own independence. It's also about creating an environment where your life runs smoothly, and accountability is the foundation of that. Accountability also strengthens your confidence. When you own your choices, you stop fearing the outcome because you know it is a reflection of your effort, not chance. You stop asking, what if it fails, and start asking, what can I learn from this? That mindset is powerful because it shifts focus from fear to growth. Every time you handle a challenge through accountability, you reinforce the belief that you are capable of shaping your reality. That belief compounds over time, and soon nothing feels out of reach because you've proven to yourself repeatedly that you are the architect of your life. Another key dimension is discipline. Accountability and discipline are inseparable. You can't hold yourself accountable without discipline, and you can't fully exercise discipline without accountability. They feed each other. Discipline gives you the structure to act consistently, while accountability ensures you measure those actions and adjust when necessary. Together, they create a loop of continuous improvement. You stop being reactive and start being proactive. You stop drifting and start navigating. That combination is freedom in its purest form. Accountability also means setting high standards for yourself. You can't take ownership if your bar is too low. If you settle for mediocrity, accountability becomes meaningless because you're only measuring yourself against weak benchmarks. True accountability requires honesty about your potential, courage to face your shortcomings, and commitment to meet your own expectations. It's a constant conversation with yourself. Am I operating at the level I know I can? If the answer is no, you adjust. If the answer is yes, you keep pushing. Either way, you control the outcome. The ultimate freedom of accountability is the freedom from regret. Most people carry regrets because they spent their lives blaming others or refusing to take control. They allowed external forces to dictate their past. Accountability cuts that off. When you own your life fully, every decision is yours, every success is yours, and every failure is yours too. You can look back and say, honestly, I did everything I could with what I had. That clarity and ownership eliminates bitterness, excuses, and wasted energy. You can move forward with purpose and confidence because nothing outside of you can undo your effort or control your story. Choosing peace over proving is one of the most radical forms of power because it goes against everything the world pushes on you. Society is built around approval, validation, and comparison. People want likes, applause, recognition, and validation from others to measure their worth. Most people spend their lives constantly trying to prove themselves to others, in their careers, in their friendships, on social media, and even within their families. They hustle not because they fully committed to their own growth, but because they want acknowledgement. But when you start choosing peace over proving, everything shifts. You stop giving your energy away in search of someone else's approval. You stop trying to fill your self-worth with outside applause. And in that moment, clarity emerges. Seeking validation is exhausting. It makes you reactive, always looking for feedback, always adjusting to someone else's standards. It pulls your focus away from your own path. You start thinking about how others perceive your moves instead of whether your moves are aligned with your goals. You measure your life with someone else's ruler, and your vision becomes diluted. Choosing peace over proving means you step out of that loop. You stop caring about what people think and start caring about what feels right, what grows you, and what builds your life. That shift is freeing because suddenly your energy is directed inward, toward creation, toward mastery, toward self-improvement instead of performance. Peace over proving also allows you to prioritize your own growth without distraction. When you're not worried about recognition, you can focus on building real skill and substance. You can study longer, practice harder, and reflect deeper without feeling the need to announce progress every step of the way. That's how true mastery is built, in private, in silence, with consistency. When your goal is to prove something to yourself, not to the world, the work becomes sustainable. You're not chasing applause that fades, you're chasing results that last. And that shift from external to internal focus creates a level of clarity that most people never experience. Clarity comes when you stop proving because you remove the noise. All the comments, opinions, and comparisons fade into the background. You stop overthinking every step to fit someone else's expectations. You stop chasing validation and start chasing vision. Your priorities become sharper because you are operating on your own values, not the shifting standards of others. You see the path ahead more clearly, and decisions that used to feel overwhelming or complicated suddenly become obvious. That clarity is power because it allows you to move efficiently, decisively, and with purpose. When you live in the state of proving, you're vulnerable to manipulation. People can shape your choices without you even realizing it because you're constantly seeking their approval. You hesitate, second guess, and alter your plans to meet other people's expectations. But when peace becomes your priority, that influence disappears. You're unshakable because you don't need anyone's approval to act. You move with authenticity, you follow your own rules, and that independence makes you unstoppable. People may criticize, doubt, or misunderstand you, but it no longer affects your momentum because you've divorced your self-worth from their opinions. Choosing peace over proving also strengthens your relationships. When you stop seeking validation, you stop performing. You stop bending over backward to be liked, respected, or approved. Instead, you operate from honesty, integrity, and authenticity. People respond to that energy differently because it's grounded. Relationships become less about appearances and more about substance. The connections you maintain are genuine, and the ones that don't align with your growth naturally fall away. That's another way peace empowers you. It creates space for meaningful energy instead of draining it. Living for peace over proving also guards against burnout. Constantly trying to prove yourself to the world is exhausting because there's always a new audience, a new expectation, a new standard to meet. The moment you stop that cycle, you regain energy. You invest that energy in work that matters, growth that compounds, and experiences that elevate. You stop trading your life for the fleeting approval of others, and you start building something permanent for yourself. That energy you reclaim becomes fuel for bigger moves, better thinking, and unstoppable momentum. When you choose peace, you also develop emotional resilience. Criticism, judgment, and envy no longer control your emotions. You no longer react impulsively or defensively to what others say or think. Your mood isn't dictated by applause or disapproval. That stability gives you the ability to see opportunities where others see obstacles. It allows you to navigate challenges calmly, make rational decisions, and stay consistent in your action. That emotional clarity is essential because it allows you to operate above the chaos that controls most people. Peace over proving also transforms your focus. When you stop chasing recognition, you can focus entirely on building legacy instead of attention. You invest in skill, discipline, strategy, and self-mastery. You stop wasting energy convincing others that you're capable and start proving it through action. That focus compounds over time. Small, consistent actions build into massive outcomes because every move is deliberate, intentional, and aligned with your vision, not with someone else's applause. Another layer of this is self-confidence. The more you stop seeking validation, the more you trust yourself. You start to understand that you are enough, that your work is enough, and that your choices are enough. That self-trust is unstoppable because it creates internal alignment. When your confidence comes from within, nobody can shake it. It doesn't rely on luck, timing, or other people's judgment. It's anchored in your own effort, clarity, and integrity. That's freedom in its purest form. When external validation becomes irrelevant and internal conviction drives everything. Choosing peace over proving doesn't mean arrogance or detachment. It means control. It means operating with purpose. It means directing your energy where it counts. You can still share victories, inspire others, or lead people, but your self-worth and clarity remain untouchable. That's the real power, being able to shine, create, and succeed without being tethered to what others think. It's a rare state because it goes against the instincts we're conditioned to follow, but it's the state that allows unstoppable growth, freedom, and vision. Finally, living for peace over proving aligns you with your true purpose. Instead of chasing external approval, you chase authenticity. You pursue growth, mastery, and meaningful results. You stop reacting to noise and you start creating your own reality. When clarity is the guiding force, everything else falls into place naturally. Decisions are easier, paths are clearer, energy is sharper, and results become inevitable. That's the ultimate power of choosing peace over proving. So here's the truth. Your energy, your focus, your growth, your discipline, your accountability, your peace, none of it belongs to anyone else. Stop giving pieces of yourself to people, distractions, or validation that don't serve your vision. Stop measuring your journey against someone else's scoreboard. Stop proving when you can be building. Stop reacting when you can be creating. When you focus on yourself, you become your own standard. You become the force that moves in silence, the power that grows in private, the energy that compounds into mastery. Your life starts to reflect your choices, not the chaos of the world around you. And in that space, clarity emerges, confidence emerges, freedom emerges. You stop chasing and you start commanding, you stop surviving and you start thriving. Everything you've been searching for, success, respect, peace, fulfillment, starts with one decision: to protect your energy, invest in yourself, and take ownership of your life. Once you do that, nothing and nobody can stop you. Your focus becomes your weapon. Your discipline becomes your path. Your clarity becomes your light, and your life becomes unstoppable.